Welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly, where we talk about the latest in the Microsoft 365 platform and other areas once a week from Microsoft and then articles from the community as well. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft 365 platform side of the house, and with me as a co-host is Waldek.
Hi everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I am cloud developer advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
There we go. So it is 22nd of November 2021, episode 144, and we have a good set of discussions, interviews coming up today as well. With who? Who is our visitor?
Who is our guest? No idea. That's secret. Catherine.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about we scheduled quite a few of these now, so I can't remember which one is who.
Catherine.
So Catherine is joining from the from the Viva Connection OneDrive SharePoint platform team. So she's my teammate, relatively new person, and we're going to talk about her, let's say, history and career path, and then moving to the Microsoft and the first impressions within a few months with her. She's been helping on the Viva Connection partner engagement, so getting partners involved and building stuff in Viva Connection. But and then of course we'll do the articles as well. But let's actually jump in right into the interview, and we'll come back for the articles after that. So welcome, Catherine, and joining us on the PnP Weekly. And this was episode 144, unless I'm completely mistaken. Doesn't matter.
Yes. It's still episode 1.
That is true. Now, Catherine, we did a quick intro before we started this interview, and that you're part of you're actually my teammate. But can you do a quick intro? What do you do? Who are you? Where you come from? And what do you do?
Well, thank you, Vesa, and thank you for having me today. I'm Catherine Chuaga. I'm a senior PM within the Viva Connections team. So I look after the Viva Connection extensibility developer experience. I joined Microsoft about 4 months ago. Now it's a really exacting role, especially having joined when things were ramping up. 4 months into the job, there's a GA, there's all these things happening. It's been a fast running train for me, and having to jump on board and figure out what's going on amid other things, just learning the culture in Microsoft and just the processes, the people, and now the product. Aside from that, I am a mom to a 6-year-old that I love so much, and probably she's somewhere around here now that we're on Thanksgiving break. And I enjoy most of my free time. I'm either spending time with her, creating memories with her, or sharing hobbies. Like one of the newly found hobbies we've been trying to do together is skating and painting. So,
you mean roller skating?
Now I'm curious.
Oh, yeah, like this one. But she's kind of grasping it. I'm not. I'm having a hard time finding my balance.
Kids.
It's really hard for me, but I enjoy it. I think it's part of me stretching myself out of my comfort zone, and because you're used to feeling so safe with our daily routine. I say, let me stretch myself. I've never been on these things. They look really easy, but not. So my daughter, I have a family. Was born and raised in Kenya. I've spent the last X number of years of my life. I don't want to say how many years, so that you guys don't know
we don't need to
my
exactly.
age.
Okay.
Started out my career as a software engineer. I studied in Kenya for my bachelor's and master's degree at Strathmore University. I got an MBA, but my degree is in business and IT. Later on, my first job was a software engineer, and I used to do, coding and programming, then transitioned to a business analyst, where this was my first role of now understanding the needs of the customer, to interpreting them to designers, and moved on to a project manager. And I worked with a multinational company back in East Africa office for about 6 years. Then about 2 years ago, I moved to the US, where I came here and found this whole new role called a product manager, and I got some interest into it. So in my first year in the US, I worked with a startup, again, fast-paced kind of environment, then transitioned to Microsoft. So that has been my journey. Like, I feel like, finding PM was just a combination of all the experiences that I've had, from tech to business. And I didn't even mention at some point I was a UX researcher somewhere in my career. So I kind of understand, going out there, talking to customers and understanding their needs. So it kind of came in together for me, the PM role, as having the business acumen, the technical expertise, and also the UX stuff. So it really made me, kind of summed up everything that I wanted to do and have experimented, and I'm able to put into practice all these things as a PM right now.
Yeah, the PM is a quite generalist role, so to say, right? So you're doing pretty much everything and a lot of stuff across the different areas, but depending on really on what needs to be done. Hey, here's a PM. PM is going to take care of it. So
and I will say, like, as you say, PM is very generalist, and my previous PM role was more of a PM features, working into features, and now I'm in development.
Yes.
And it's a whole new ball game for me, like trying to understand, okay, I'm really getting feedback from these guys, and I have to figure out what do I prioritize, as opposed to, we have this idea we're thinking about, hey, do you want to test it out? In the dev space, when you work with devs, they know what they want. And they tell you, hey, we want this feature, we want this, we want, your competitors have X, Y, and Z. So you have to be on top of your game and knowing what do I prioritize for them, as opposed to the other way around as a feature PM.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. Just to kind of explain for the people who are listening or watching as well. So of course, there's different kind of PMs in Microsoft as well, and really depends on, are you a so-called feature PM, because there's certain organizations where you get to actually focus only on isolated, let's say, things, and then I'm going to fine-tune this UX to be the best possible thing in the world. But for example, in your role, Catherine, right now, that's not really the case, is it?
Not quite, but I'm trying to see how I can influence some of the features that we, based on the feedback that we get from the developer ecosystem, how can we influence the product itself of Viva Connection and bring in features that are really making an impact to the developer community. So It still ties in there. You just be, the role that I'm in is being the voice of the developer ecosystem. You are the one who's listening, keeping your ears and eyes open on what they want and what they're asking for, and now vouching for that to be in the roadmap or what you're shipping, in the next releases.
Now, before we go, actually, let's come back on that one in a second. Just out of curiosity, how's the 4 months? You're now 4 months in the Microsoft, and Waldek is actually 1 year, right? So you're relatively new
and a
as
month,
well.
and a month.
1 year and a month. Yes, exactly. Not counting, but how's the 4 months been? It's probably pretty overwhelming, considering the COVID situation and everything else. You haven't really met anybody, right? Or have you?
Virtually, yes. But I haven't met anybody face to face. So I will say, I've been drowning. I'll be honest with you. I've been drowning, but I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and I said, hey, at least now my eyes are out. I can see the bigger picture of things. I'm not just breathing normal rate.
Oh no, another wave coming.
Yes. But I still have my eyes out there. I can see, I understand the product, what you're trying to achieve. I have again, right now I'm able to see the bigger picture, but the things underneath here, I still feel like I'm running 100 miles. And now trying to know, how is this connected to this? How is it? What should I know? And, with a lot of information overload, and I will say I'm drowning, but in a kind of systematic way of drowning, not like how I was 1 month in. I'm kind of drowning and grasping some air. So, and having those bold moments, now I get it. And then
yeah.
you go back to an email that was sent week 1 and you're like, it's making sense.
And then you like reread it and like, no, I don't get it.
If you still don't get it, you just pack it and you read it in the 6 months
Archive.
down the line. You're like,
Archive.
now I get it.
Yeah. But it's probably been pretty hectic, and it's good to see that you're above the water line right now, so heading to the right direction.
Up to here, all the way
yes.
here.
Yeah. But like explained on your role as well, because we are from the platform team, it is quite versatile role. You need to do a lot of stuff, and you can easily drown in the amount of things which you can do. So it's really hard to kind of balance out that information overload. Even for somebody who's been a while in the company, it's really challenging to prioritize the time for sure, because it's just never enough time. It just doesn't exist. So
that's very true. Like joining, and as I said, I joined when everything was just, the market was ready for Viva Connection, and we have all these ISVs we've announced out there that, hey, they're coming to the market, and you have to figure out where they at, what are they shipping, are we ready, are we still on track? And having to understand what they're building. Like sometimes, I say, I was reading something today in the morning, and it read like this: if you took on a new job and you feel like you're an imposter, welcome, you're in the growth plan package. And I was like, yep, check that, because
yes.
I felt like, was I even worthy of this job? I completely do not understand what I need to do, but I know there's some aspects that I have to unlearn the things that I've learned over the years to make myself grow in this role. So a lot of unlearning has happened over the last 4 months for me to absorb new knowledge, new ways of working, new set of customers that I'm dealing with.
So actually, that's kind of interesting. So if you don't mind actually jumping in there, so that's around the startup mentality, or what kind of unlearning is that? Sorry, put you on a spot.
It's okay. So I've had to work. My work experience, as I mentioned, I've worked with startups. I've worked as a freelance consultant. I've worked with a multinational as well. Yep. And for me, I had to unlearn a lot of things from a cultural perspective, how we work. My whole work experience was out of Kenya. How we work over there, how you interact with your colleagues, how you expect it. The culture on this side of the world is more like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Figure out how you're going to do it. As opposed to how my career has been, it's been more like, this is what I expect you to do, and this is the order I want you to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is what I want, like very specific. So we're very dependent on manager telling me what to do, as opposed to finding a manager who tells you, we need to get to this point. How? Figure out.
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of unlearning on that. Again, in terms of the audience that I was used to meeting the end user of the product.
Sure.
I am meeting, my engagement right now is the builder of the product. And this whole, trying to understand what are they trying to achieve to the target end user and how they're building it. That's a different ballgame for me.
Sure.
So right. There's a lot of unlearning that I've had to do, as well as, I was getting comfortable with the startup life, shipping things, no processes. Now we have to do, experience reviews, all these things that we have to do to get something out
those
there.
Experience reviews, which are yes, they might be pretty. So briefly explaining, experience reviews are intended to guarantee that whatever we're shipping from an end user perspective has the right level of quality. The thing is, though, that internally they're pretty stressful, which is good. Now, internally they're pretty stressful situation, because basically everything which is visible is going to be pointed out. It's a 1 pixel.
That's good.
It's a one. Yeah, it is. It is good.
It is.
That's good.
but it's always kind of those things where you are sitting in a meeting where you're showing your baby or the functionality which are responsible, and then they will point out, have you seen that? Have you seen that? Have you seen that? They said, yeah, because of historical reasons, yeah, but not good enough. We need to fix that. And it's an interesting process to deal with that and learn to deal with that constructive feedback, not in a negative way, but rather in a personal way, rather as say, oh, that's a great idea, let me take that and put it in a better format. It's just a natural thing for humans to always, hey, why are you jumping? Why are you telling me there's something wrong with my stuff? Which
in your eyes, everything looks perfect.
Exactly.
I brought the most perfect thing, and then you're like, oh, I did see that.
Yes.
One pixel off. One pixel off.
And obviously, it's not just the pixels, but it's the experiences, the message boxes, and all of that stuff. So, and quite often in these kind of products where we build on top of existing platform, there's some historical decisions which might not be quite optimal, and then no, I didn't. That was outside of my scope. Yeah, but it's part of the experience.
So in that, right, like to what degree it's a matter of doing everything right as opposed to having an answer to it? Like, in other words, like you can see like something might be off and it's like, yes, I saw it. And it was a deliberate decision not to fix it because X, Y, and Z. And so I was like, okay.
Yeah. And that's part of the discussion as well. So basically, internal experience reviews are green. Yellow basically means, there's something to adjust here, but it's okay-ish. So, and then the red one basically means there's tasks, and then we mark them. And if there's any red ones, it basically means it cannot go forward until it has been fixed. So quite often there's quite a few yellow ones. So
with that, I wanted to ask, have you already been through your first, Catherine?
Oh yes, 2 of them. So
and pass, fail.
No. But I'll say it was an interesting experience for me in those experience reviews, because you get thought leaders in different spaces: tech, content, UX, things that, as a PM, what you're doing is trying to ship something. You understand the need, you build for something, and you want to ship it, but from a technical perspective, you didn't think about it. From a content perspective, somebody who's a content writer, the verbiage is kind of off. And you get all this feedback that really helps you build even on things that you didn't even think about. So from a startup perspective, as long as PM says it's okay, it's shipped, then fine, it's shipped. It goes to the market, and then you start getting comments and watching, what people are writing on social media, and then you start fixing on that. But in this case, there's a deliberate effort to make sure that it's been really thoroughly criticized or, analyzed before it's shipped. And it's a whole ball game, just making sure that we're shipping something that is really perfect, not just out there and we didn't think about the verbiage. And the audience you're targeting here is in terms of millions. I was used 2,000. This is millions. So we have to, show the Microsoft brand in it, the professionalism of the people who work at Microsoft, which is a good thing. The first one was a little bit weird, but now that I've done the second one, I now understand the vision and the goal and the purpose of all this, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, the first reaction is of course always defensive. It's like, hey, wait a minute, why are you attacking my thing? No, why are you doing that? No. This is intentional. It's intentional to be a bit not aggressive, but a bit detailed on the things which are frank. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I had to unlearn that. I had to unlearn my defense mode of being like, no, this is perfect. Exactly. So I had to unlearn that to accept feedback as a critique way of my growth.
Yeah, and they're not really aggressive, or the feedback itself is not. Of course, it's not targeted for the people. It's targeted on what we're seeing on the experience, which is just to be clear on that.
But it's your thing, right? It's your thing.
It is.
Like you kind of identify yourself with your work. Like spend weeks of labor to do this.
Yep.
And it's done.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And then
That
it
is
isn't
the
done.
thing. Yes, exactly. Now, before we go actually on other areas, I wanted to come back on Catherine, on the moment when you moved across the pond, because you know it's just a small pond between. Any cultural kind of a shocks, just out of curiosity, when people are moving from Africa and Kenya to the you moved to Atlanta, right? So you've been on there. Any kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that it works this way.
Yes. So there are a few things that, well, I'll say I wasn't confident about myself. One, my education background. I thought I needed to go to get a certificate from one of the, colleges here. I wasn't very confident, even with an MBA from Kenya. I wasn't too confident. And every time, I will apply for a job, I was contemplating on doing something, a certificate from Georgia Tech or something that just shows I have some background from this part of the world. Yep. But the more and more I went into the interviews, the more I realized it's not about the paper, it's about the experience and what you know. And that brought confidence for me, even as much as where did you get your MBA from? I was very confident to say Strathmore University. And I was like, yes, this is it, but this is what I know. This is what I've worked on. Secondly, I think for me, and I believe you two being from a global world, not being very confident about your language, English. I had second guesses about, am I fluent? Am I communicating with clarity? And it's, I always say knowledge is one thing and the language you use to communicate that is a different thing. So I shortchanged myself thinking I wasn't knowledgeable of what I know just based on the language that I speak and how fluent I am in English. But I've come to realize, and working with Microsoft and even the startup that I worked with here in Georgia, is it's about, did you put your point across and did people understand? Doesn't matter. Right. If your English is top tier, you have an accent or not, but was the point put across? So that's the second thing that I noted. So the other thing is, when there was the whole movement of Black Lives Matter, I couldn't understand what was going on as much as I'm dark skinned. But I tried to, just understand the history of the country. It's a whole culture, just to understand where all this base is from, like why are there this kind of movement, so that I might be of dark color, but I need to be aware of what's happening within the society, what's impacting my colleagues as well. I had to learn a lot about the culture, because the culture we have back at home is more about colonization by the British and not this other way. I don't understand what Black Lives Matter here, because back home we're all pretty much all dark colored, so I wasn't connecting to that. I had to learn the culture. I had to understand the history, and the reason why I'm saying this is because it's really important for you to understand the history and the culture of the different people you work with, because that's the majority of people I work with. If there's I need to understand what conversations are uncomfortable for them. What conversations are they okay with? I am not dealing with the same people. I know what the conversations that are not comfortable, people are not comfortable back in Kenya, but I need to immerse myself to have empathy with my new set of colleagues and people that I'm working with. Yeah. So I think those three things were my top challenge. But again, as is mentioned, expecting your manager to micromanage you and tell you what to do. I don't know. I was so used to that. Like, tell me, I want you to do this and this and this today, and I will sit comfortably and put the notes 1, 2, 3. This is all I need to do. But here I have to wrangle my head. Sometimes I find myself waking up at night when I have that bulb moment and I start writing because, I just figured out the how. And Vesa, we've had conversations where I pause and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it now. I'm getting it now because I'm seeing the bigger picture. And I've figured out the how. I'm putting together a strategy to go forward. And it's really, really amazing the autonomy you're given to do. You've been given a challenge, figure out how to do it. This is a different ballgame. And I love it. I enjoy it. And it's something that I as well put, emphasis to my friends back in Kenya is you need to change your mindset. If you want to work in a global company like this or move to this probably side of the world, this is how you need to start thinking and doing things. And it has positive impact to even how you feel the value of bringing. It's not just checking off boxes. It's more, oh my God, I'm making an impact. I made that.
I made that decision.
I made that decision. Yeah. And this is the impact it's having. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, that's actually really good. That's a really good point for sure, and that's something I think it might, like you said, it's certainly a cultural thing, and I guess as an example, personally, just thinking myself, I've always been kind of a self-driven. It's just something that I'd never kind of really thought about. I'm just give me the ball, thank you, and I'll just keep on carrying that, and just. But I dare say, of course, there are cultural differences on how that's being done, and of course there are company-specific differences as well, how that works, and on which companies they give you the opportunity to grow to that kind of a role as well. So, because that doesn't happen everywhere. So, and I have to say on the language as well, I can relate on that 100% because of course when I started my career in Microsoft, I didn't have I didn't have a good way of communicating in English, and until at some point I just like snap, don't think about it too much, just let it flow, and then oops, okay, now it's working. So I don't care what I say anymore, it just comes out, and then I hope that it's nothing silly. So
you say what?
Yeah, or anything other than silly, but you need to trust yourself. Just let it go.
Exactly. Trust yourself. You know what you want to say. It's just a language. If I have to say that thing 3 or 4 times for somebody to understand what I'm trying to communicate, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to write if my written English is better than my verbal. I'm happy to write and document. You just have to figure out how do you communicate the knowledge that you have and the expertise that you have. And language, English is just a language, the medium of communicating your knowledge. And I've come to embrace that and know, hey, I might be fluent when I say it in Swahili or mixed English and Swahili because I speak 3 languages. If I'm fluent in communicating that to my friends who I can mix any of those languages, I can as well communicate this.
True.
So,
yeah, totally.
And we need to
at work, it just flows, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking to people. And people might be VP or GPM or manager. Like, it's just people. It's at the end of the day, they read the same books. It's human beings, right?
Yeah. And that's certainly one kind of a good career tip as well, is not to get over, let's say, starstruck by the people, because they're actually humans as well. So to say, approaching people as people.
But it is cool. But it is cool. Like, you don't get every day a chance to talk to somebody like to whom you look up, and they're like, and then you're like, so what is the thing? Like, I don't know.
Now, moving on a bit of a different topic. So I just want to actually catch up on the latest on this one, even though we kind of talk almost on a daily basis anyway. But you were planning to move to Seattle, right? So
yes.
Is that still in progress, or is that still a plan? Or now you realize that it's dark and rainy there, and you're not going to move anymore?
I'm still planning to move. I know my manager will watch this, and I've already committed to moving. So yes, I will be moving to Seattle. Yes, and I look forward to, it's my life has been a lot of changes, moving from Kenya to Georgia to Seattle, and I'm looking for a place where I have opportunities, and I feel Microsoft, in terms of the culture, in terms of, I've talked to a couple of friends who already work in Microsoft, and everybody like you, Vesa, you've been here for 15 years. There's a quite good reason why you've been here for 15 years. And, it's that the mindset itself that, the opportunities they give you to grow, as well as feeling the growth and the value you're driving. I feel like I found that in Microsoft. Even 4 months in, I'm second guessing myself every minute, but I feel like, hey,
I think that's natural. That's not going to go away. I can trust me. 15 years in, and I'm still like,
it won't. Oh,
I think it's imposter syndrome. You either have it or not, so you can't help it. So, sorry.
Yeah, so having the second guessing bit of it, I'm also looking at a place where I can build a career and grow and have my daughter, find a permanent place to stay. We've been moving a lot, and having discussed this with my family, that's my husband. We feel comfortable, settling in Seattle. He's also in tech. He works in tech. It's a more vibrant state when it comes to looking for opportunities in tech. So yes, we're still planning, still bracing ourselves for the cold, dark days. I think I was told in Seattle it's just the two seasons: the dark weather and the bright days. It doesn't matter if it's fall, winter, summer. It's just two. You just have to adapt to it. And we always say we're looking for new challenges at work. So even in life, sometimes you just have to find that and probably find the change you're looking for to grow to the next level. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, and like I said, there's certainly enough opportunities in IT in Washington State, because it's now turning to be the capital of cloud services and all of that stuff. So, and of course, not just there's no reason to look at opportunities outside of Microsoft, just to be clear, but there's a lot of them in Washington State. So,
well, I mean, we have Bing, Azure, Dynamics, Xbox,
exactly.
365.
It's just massive amount of different opportunities in Microsoft as well. So for sure. So whenever we get actually back in, especially, so of course, moving to Seattle helps, and Redmond office helps on the communication, because doing that remotely does work, as we've proven now with the 2 years into this situation where we are. But of course, it's different when you meet people in the corridor and in the cafeteria and having that discussion. And there is a difference for sure in that. So. Yeah. And now Waldek feels bad. No, just kidding.
I mean, I just wanted. I mean, people are welcome. Like, everybody is welcome in my corridors and office.
Yeah, exactly. Door is open.
Oh yeah, coffee. Fresh coffee every day, every time. Enough for everybody. I have a chair. Can talk.
But, now, I just want to make sure I'll be conscious about the timing as well. Now, moving on to again another area. Just out of curiosity, we're putting all of the women in IT on spot on this question, which says, would you have any tips for other women in IT or people who are looking into moving to IT career? Because you've gone pretty far on this ladders already. And hopefully this is just a start.
Oh, yes. Every step I take is a start to the next one.
Exactly.
So I like the fact that you put me on the spotlight, and I love when, you get to any other forum, not just this, where women are asked, what can you share to the other women? And I'm passionate about empowering women to venture into tech, IT as a form of career, because it's considered as a men's world, or what is out there for as a career, to build a career out of.
Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit of background before I share some tips is, back in Kenya, I had an organization I had started out with a couple of my friends. It was called Divas for Tech. Launched in 2011. It was started out from a group of girls who we got a full-time scholarship to do our master's in telecommunications, fully sponsored, but it was a sponsorship for 30 students, but ended up having 6 women, and the rest were guys. And we started asking, the administration, why is there just 6 women? Why isn't it 15-15? Equality. And they said, out of the applications that were sent in, if you believe it or not, there were about just 10 from women. There were about 300 from men. So you can
Wow.
just see the difference in terms of the gender gap. And we just decided, hey, we have to step up and do something. So there are different organizations that we've worked with that do empowerment for women. And there's one that I applaud for doing a lot of work around women in the urban areas, for, you know, promoting women in tech. But we thought, what about the women who are in the rural areas whose perception of a career is being a teacher, doctor, nurse, and that's all, or, you know, a police officer, and that's it. Like, computer is just a thing that is in the computer lab, but don't see a career out of it. And we started having like outreach sessions for that, just going out there and talking to these girls, and you can see just the keen interest of just, you mean this little thing, I can have a career out of it. And, you know, just converting one person and just gaining that interest, just the knowledge out, like, hey, when you pick your university courses, yes, there's something else that you can do as computer science or IT, or there's something else you can pick. And we went on. I had to abandon that because of, you know, some job assignment. I had to be sent out of the country because of job assignment. But I am always grateful. I always reference to this because it was such an eye-opening opportunity for me. And I have always mentored, and I've been involved in a lot of mentoring opportunities, like the Standard Chartered Women in Technology, where women who have startups are looking for people who can give them advice on product or tech or investment. And I give my time and opportunity for that. That the Divas for Tech kind of out, you know, it didn't get to that level. But as a person, I am always looking for opportunities to mentor around, you know, women around tech. So the key things that I will say is, you know, put yourself out there. You know, IT, being a woman in IT doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a degree in computer science or technology. You could have a degree in marketing, but you're really, really good at marketing, and you can come into tech as a product marketing manager. You're working in marketing, but in a technology firm, and you get to learn all these things. Yep. You can be a HR resource, but recruiting tech resources. It doesn't necessarily have to be a degree in engineering. But you are in the IT and you're ahead, and you know, IT is not going to anywhere, or tech isn't going anywhere. It's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. There's AI, there's cloud, there's all these things coming in, and there's always a way you can plug yourself in. So don't be afraid to step out just because you don't have the traditional degree to get in IT. Secondly, technology is always evolving. You can learn. Today, my daughter is learning JavaScript. I am learning with her. To understand this JavaScript. Back then, I learned PHP and Java, and you know, it's always evolving. You plug yourself, just understand where the market is heading, where is the trend. It's just a matter of committing yourself to learn. There is nothing hard. The more you learn, the more you expose yourself, the more you get opportunities and give yourself the cutting edge, as long as you're ahead of the game. And I think that's a pro and a con of being in tech, because you always have to learn, as opposed to medicine. Things really don't change. But in tech, 1 minute you're coding in C#, and then the next minute it's not even, nobody wants to code in C#. They're not looking for anybody in C#, but going forward, they're looking for somebody, hey, do you know React, React Native or JavaScript or this? So you can always plug yourself in at any point. The third thing is reach out in communities where women are sharing stories. Find a mentor, somebody who can help you avoid the pitfalls that they went through. I have had really good mentors in my career who've helped me, through the journey, and just talking to them, and they have somebody who, if they can't solve it for you, they have somebody who can help you do something. And that has really helped me in my career. And the third thing is building your own, believing in yourself and having that confidence you can do it. As I'm speaking now, I am very confident. I know what Viva Connection, yet I know what I don't know all about Viva Connections, but when I get in front of my devs, my customers, my partners, I have to bring in the A game so that they can believe and have the confidence that I have in myself in delivering or, being of value to them. So those are my 4 takeaways. And anyone, if we have anyone who's watching this and wants me to be as a mentor to them, I am always open. Can find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy, just chat me up. I am very open to it. I believe in mentoring. I'm a big fan of mentoring, and I mentor other, and I'm mentored by others. So it's always a passed on. Somebody is handing over to me, and I'm handing over back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now I have to do something on those 4 tips, what you said, which is actually really, really crucial for people to understand, is that, like you said, IT is not just about engineering and just about coding. There's a lot of opportunities to come from a bit different direction, and then be first, for example, product marketing manager, like you said, and then from there being like, oh, that's actually really interesting. Let me transform to be there.
Yeah.
And that way, it's not necessarily the background. Even though studying is important and university degrees are being valued, but it's not necessarily always the thing which is the number one thing. You either have it or not. No, that doesn't define you for the rest of the life. So certainly not. So
yeah,
good. That was really, really good. Now, from a timing perspective, I guess we have to close.
Time flies.
There's so much, so much to talk about, because these are always so interesting to actually talk about with people on these things. But we want to keep the show in a 1-hour booking typically, and we have the articles and all of that coming. So
we'll not make it.
Yeah, I know we didn't make it this time either. So that unfortunately this happens a lot.
75 minutes, 2 hours, kind of.
Okay, yeah, no can do.
Okay, you do, right?
Exactly. Now, any last words? Anything interesting what you're doing, Catherine, right now? Of course, the Viva Connection is a big thing. We want all of the partners to build stuff for the Viva Connection. Anything what's on your table, like, oh, this is the one thing which I'm now focused on, and this everybody should be doing this. This is cool.
What's on my table right now is just getting developer experience to the next level, like what they're building, making sure they have all the resources they need to be able to build a game Viva Connection adaptive cards, as well as the resources, the end-to-end experience from learning what are the basics to being an expert and publishing it to their customers, and even for their customers to discover, how do we find all this? So that's what I'm spending most of my time, figuring out how do I make it a great partner experience. We just launched GA the product. We still have a long way to go. And yes, so for the developers out there, please reach out to me if you have cool ideas. How can we improve? Feedback, just reach out to me. I'm always eager and eager to learn from you and the ecosystem on how can we improve the Viva Connection extensibility to everybody in the ecosystem.
Cool. That was really, really good. That's really, really good. Cool. I think that sums up our interview. So thank you, Catherine, for joining us. This was really, really cool and a great discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And understanding your career and development and the next steps, and that's always really, really interesting. Even though I know some of these things already, but it's this is not only just the interview for me. No, just kidding. But well, actually, to be fair, I have to say, even on a record, one of the great things about having this kind of a show is to meet people and have an open discussion, 30 minutes here and there with the people we work with. So it actually always gives more perspective. And then as we meet people then online or in person, then if people have watched show like this, they will know about where to start the discussion. And that's one of the key objectives of these things as well. But anyway, thank you, Catherine. Thank you for this one. This one was really good. And for the viewers and listeners of the show, right now we're closing the interview circle, and then we jump on the covering a few of the latest articles this week, and then we close up after that. But thank you, Catherine, for joining. We kind of stopped recording in a second. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Catherine, for the great interview. So really, really good stuff, and nice to hear the first impressions of moving into the Microsoft as well. And there's a lot of things happening on her actually life at this moment, moving across the continents and then moving to Seattle and from Atlanta, which is always interesting because there's a pretty big temperature difference as well, and the level of light is a pretty significantly different.
I was like moving across continent from Atlanta to Seattle. How is that? Oh wait, it's within the continent from one side to another. I was like,
anyway, so
so smooth. It is so smooth.
Indeed, this is really good. So let's actually jump into the articles and go them through. A lot of actually new articles from Microsoft this week on the developer side of the house. So let's actually start from there. First of all, Vincent had a blog post related on Microsoft Graph Go SDK. Can you talk about what is Go? Go?
So Go is a programming language, basically like C#, JavaScript, Ruby, whatever, right? So it's a programming language used a lot. And now we offer an SDK for it to help developers who build on Go or in Go to connect their application to Microsoft 365 through the Microsoft Graph.
And it's actually pretty sweet looking. So I'm not super familiar with Go development, but it doesn't actually look too bad. So it's kind of an interesting way of doing things for sure. So it doesn't look too bad. Maybe there's no time for learning Go. Anyway.
Maybe you could try to learn Go, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Now, the next news was actually really interesting. We need to talk about this one a bit to get some clarity on it. So announcing Teams JavaScript SDK version 2 in public preview, extend Teams across Microsoft 365. Do you want to do a quick intro on what does it actually mean in practice?
Yeah, sure. So the idea is that up until now, we used to build apps for Teams. And these apps were visible only in Teams because they were application for Teams, things like Teams tabs, messaging extensions, and so forth and so on. And now with this update, we offer you the ability to expose your Teams apps in Outlook, at least, and then in Office.com, right? So the same app that you have already built, if you update to this new SDK and new manifest, you will be able to expose basically the same app across multiple locations that people use in their work.
Yeah. So rather than having a specific extensibility and manifest model for Office client and Office and SharePoint and Teams and all of that stuff, we're looking into having one, and that's now based on the Teams JavaScript SDK. This is a preview, just to be super clear. This is basically, well, it's kind of maybe even a misleading to say that it's Teams JavaScript SDK, because actually it's the packaging model, which is the key here. So we're taking advantage of a bit different packaging model.
Two things, right? Because the SDK is also there because the SDK gives you some additional ability to know about the context, right? So you will be able to tell whether you are inside Teams or Outlook or elsewhere, right?
Absolutely.
So that is this extra added.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And just to get also clarity, because we got this question last week as well. What about SharePoint framework and that direction? And is this going to replace that? No, not at all. So SharePoint framework is basically auto-hosted applications in Microsoft 365, and you can take advantage of this model with SharePoint framework as well. So as we move along within this journey. Now, right now it's pretty early. So this is preview. There was an announcement in Ignite. We demonstrated some of this in Ignite as well. There's actually a really cool sample in the Teams Toolkit V2, which is also in preview to demonstrate this. So you can actually spin up a solution which has all of their settings, which is pretty cool. So that's the easiest way to actually understand how things are getting created. Now we're having discussions with the team that they would actually join us on a community call and do a few live demos and explanations on what it actually means in practice. But we'll get back on that one a bit later.
Yes.
Good. And then we submitted. We published an article related on the guidance on implementing partner offerings for Viva Connection with DASYs and custom APIs. And this really is focusing, technically, it's not just the partner offerings, but the idea here is that you have a multi-tenant API, multi-tenant Azure AD application as an API, where which you want to then hit from the ACEs or the web parts or so on, but in this case explicitly from the Viva Connection ACE. So how do you actually implement them? How do you register them? How do you use them? Is basically the story. And there's a reference solution from it, and Paulo did 4 different videos related on this particular scenario. So really cool stuff as well. So should help on the partners on onboarding on Viva Connection. That's really the objective in here. And maybe it's just to mention, so the reference solution is at the level where you can just download the SPPKG file, put it in your tenant, and then demonstrate that. So there is a auto-hosted API and all of that available, which is kind of imaginary auto data. So it makes it really easy to demonstrate, again, the art of possible in the Microsoft 365 platform. Now, other articles, Dan Moline had a developing real-time collaborative apps with Azure, Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and GitHub. And this one was a online event a few weeks back, wasn't it?
Correct.
Time flies when you're having fun. But there's basically a multiple videos getting released from there where the different capabilities and options are being then demonstrated and shown in the videos. So really cool stuff as well. So good to have that reference point available. Then there was a relatively new video from Rabia Williams, Microsoft Teams Development, All You Need to Know. So basically getting started. What does it mean? What's possible? And she's joined with Bob German to talk about those things in a relatively short video, 1 hour, 1 hour video. Everything is so relative, right? Relatively.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it only shows how many different things we have to offer and how many things you can build on Teams, right? So it is a good overview. Like you can just sit and watch, and then you will know, you have a proper idea of what's available.
Yep, absolutely, really cool stuff for sure, and a lot of information related on the options and extensibility points and how to get started on doing them. So really cool stuff for sure. Now, this one is from Matt Wolodorsky around the journey of Viva Topics and adoption success and introduction kind of on that one. As part of this, they released also a Viva Topics scenario catalog, which is basically calling out and demonstrating different scenario options related on Microsoft Viva Topics. So really explaining what would it actually could be in your company and what are the scenarios and business objectives around those things. So really cool stuff as well. So good reference storyline for helping on understanding the power of Viva Topics. Now, we also released last week among the most used SharePoint framework solutions from the store. So this is a new series which will starting in the SharePoint blog related on the most used SharePoint framework solution. This is the top 10 list from last month, and also a quick update on the latest roadmap items as well. So not too many details on the roadmap items, but really key point here is to talk about the different partners who are building solutions for using the SharePoint framework. So really cool stuff as well. Now, this one is from Kathy Du, related on the new Microsoft feedback portal. I think Teams actually released that they're here already a few weeks back, and now SharePoint and OneDrive is basically releasing the same thing. So we're basically moving from the user voice to the Microsoft feedback portal. It's a similar kind of capability. You can vote on things and then filter out, submit ideas and all of that stuff. So really cool stuff as well. Now, Michael Mendes had a really cool blog post related on the set value list formatting option. So basically, you can update list items using a list format, and that's actually really cool. So it's not really JavaScript, but you can still do updates on a specific item and then reflect the changes for the list item as well.
That is pretty cool.
That's really cool for sure. And there's multiple scenarios. Techuan already published a few additional GitHub samples on this, and there's a lot of cool stuff available on this. But really cool for sure. So without code, just JSON definition, which isn't code, right?
Well,
that's not code. That's not code.
Yeah, it's soup. Yes.
Now, Eli had a really nice blog post, just a reference blog post related to uploading files to SharePoint with JavaScript using Microsoft Graph and Microsoft Authentication libraries, so how to get started and what are the things, how they work. Really nice blog post on explaining the different things and steps to get started as well. So really, really good stuff on there. Now, this is from Emily Mancini. Using collapsible sections within the user experience in mind, and kind of talk about the different options or the considerations as we are using collapsible sections, if you are using collapsible sections. So this is something which is available in the modern SharePoint pages. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, there wasn't actually a screenshot of the capability in the blog post, but basically considerations related on using them, for example, unable to print all content and all of that. So there's a downside of using those collapsible sections for sure. Vartman he's been really plugging a lot on the Teams platform side and authentication side recently. It's an interactively authenticate Microsoft Graph and SDK Azure Identity Library. Can't talk. Sorry.
Interactively authenticate Microsoft Graph.net SDK with Azure Identity Library.
Much better. Thank you, Waldek. Thank you. But basically walking through how that scenario can be then done and in C# in this case. So really using those libraries and how does it actually work to having that interactive sign-in process and the consenting as well. So really good stuff as well. So great reference blog post. Now, this one's really interesting. Update SharePoint user profiles based on Azure Group membership. So this one is from Octavie. So it's a relatively complex scenario, but basically, if you want to expose specific additional attributes of the people which are stored in the Azure AD in the SharePoint user profile or in the search, so people search. And this blog post really walks through all of the different settings and configurations which needs to be done there. So really cool stuff as well. So thank you for the reference of that. There was also a blog post from Liam Cleary. So really important. So how to do app registration and how to use that when you are then using the Microsoft Graph PowerShell. So super important scenario, especially if you're automating something, for example, in Azure Functions or something like that, you would be using this scenario. It's not always interactive login. Then Peter Winstra had an interesting blog post related on creating recursive flows in Power Automate. So how do you call yourself? And that's actually really cool. Infinite recursive flows, right? So you need to remember to back out as well. So
to stop at some point, yeah.
So back in the time when we were still doing on-premises SharePoint, there was an easy way of actually overrunning the memory with infinite loops. So that was I still remember breaking so many servers, basically. What's causing the problem? And memory goes, and then we're done.
Oh, so that is why you actually don't code anymore.
Yes, exactly. So many hits, so many mistakes when I was a bit younger. We'll do mistakes, so it's okay. So now Chris O'Brien is going to join us on the European Collaboration Summit 2021, and he has a session around infuse AI, artificial intelligence, into a Power Platform solution. So really cool stuff coming there, and this kind of intro blog post related on what's coming next week, because ECS is happening next week. Really cool as well. And then two more. So Paolo had a new YouTube video creating forms with adaptive card extensions with SPFX. And this is actually quite the important one. So it's basically showcasing the fact that the cards are not only for showing information and clicking a button and redirecting to an application, you can actually collect the information as well. So really kind of have that fast way of collecting whatever the information is, what is needed. So really cool stuff as well. And then regarding 365, Daniel had a quite nice actually blog post, because I was like, wow, I haven't heard about this one. I should have known that it's available, but apparently the Microsoft List desktop app is already out. So that's good to know. And it is a reactive, so it's basically progressive web app, which is then running as a desktop application. So it looks like the web client, feels like a web client, but it's actually a desktop application. But really cool stuff as well. So he walks through the installation process and how to get it and considerations on that. But that's all what we're going to do from article sites. Anything interesting, Waldek, on your side this week?
Always Always so many interesting things.
Yes.
Where do I start, right? So we started last week working on a few interesting things for CLI for Microsoft 365, where we're thinking, how can we help developers who build apps, who connect existing apps, right? So you imagine you have an app, you have built in your app in Go or ASP.NET or JavaScript, React, or whatever, and you want to bring that existing app to Microsoft 365. So you don't want to start file new project, create a whole app, but you have something and you bring it in. What is the first thing you need to do? Auth. Right? And then once you have it, you might need to change permissions as you evolve the app and get more data in. So we kind of try to think like, how can we improve this experience? Like, what are the different things that we could offer around managing auth, keeping track of it, letting you work more efficiently with AAD apps and everything else that is involved with your app. So we'll be running a few experiments in coming weeks. You will start first one already in. So we have the ability, when you create a new AAD app with CLI for Microsoft 365, we allow you to save info about this app in a local file in a current directory named .m365rc.json, right? And in there, we keep track of the ID of the app and the name, so that afterwards you can tell which app is which. You can have a bigger app like one that has API, web app, and a bot, and they use different AAD apps, right? So you can track all of them. Once you have them, we want to allow you to do things with them, easily adjust, redirect URIs, permissions, other things like that, right? So that first part, saving that info about the app, is already available in the preview version of CLI available today as we're recording that. And we'll be adding more commands in coming weeks, right? So stay tuned to updates. And if you work on M365 connected apps, definitely pay attention to the updates, because I think they will give you the ability to work more efficiently and not spend so much time clicking around, finding the right apps, and managing stuff that we think we can simplify.
And I think that there's a lot to be done over there for sure, related on tooling and simplification and making the onboarding easier across the Microsoft 365 for sure. So,
what about you?
Well, it's the Thanksgiving week, which is great, because that means that there isn't that many meetings on evenings, which is actually great. So there's time to get stuff done, which is good as well. So getting prepared for ECS, which is next week. Then we need to get the monthly summaries out again, and then SharePoint Framework 1.13.1 is coming this week, and 1.14 beta is coming this week most likely. So there's a lot of stuff actually that's happening.
Busy days.
Yeah, it's not like it's gonna slow down yet. So hopefully it's gonna
eventually,
slow down.
right?
Yeah, eventually, at some point, maybe. Who knows? But
yeah,
there's always something to be done. It's not like there's just so many things, and when something slows down, then there's like, hey, now I have time to do this, which has been delayed for months. So
yeah.
It is what it is. So that's the problem of maybe being too connected on things and too interested on doing stuff, right? So there's always something to be done. So. Fun.
Which is fun, right? Because in other words, like you always have something to do, and the cool thing is that you can improve things, offer new things, run new experiments, learn new things. So with that, like that is, yes, it's never done, but on the other hand, like it's an illusion to be done, because then imagine you're done. You wake up and you're like,
well, that's
I
true.
have nothing to do.
Isn't. Yeah, exactly. That's the one thing also. What you just spent 2 seconds on this one. So that's the interesting bit is when you have experience enough and you're in a certain level in the roles, nobody's going to tell you anymore what you're going to do. So it's basically you are the one who's defining what needs to be done. So there's no option of basically, yeah, but nobody told me that I need to do that. No, that's not an option. It's just, that's not my job. It's not a no longer a thing, because everything is.
And also, unlike in projects, a project is never done. You can always do one more thing. True. You can always improve things. Like there's always things to be done. So we're never done. And with that, there's always things to be done. There's always things to think about and think about other ways and options, right? So with that, like that is, I love it.
Yeah, That's true as well.
Yeah,
But anyway,
it's as simple as that, right?
Yes. But thank you everybody for watching this stage and listening. And this time we'll be back within. And thank you, Catherine, for joining us on the interview today. And we'll be back with another PnP Weekly within a week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.